And we are live.
Hello, everyone, and our group is presenting on the research study, Internet-Based Contingency Management Increases Walking in Sedentary Adults. This is the research study that we chose to replicate. Our group members are Brittany, Camilla, Princess, Raina, and Emily. The topics of discussion. The topics that will be covered within the presentation is the abstract, and this will be presented by Emily. The literature review presented by Camilla, methods, and the speaker is Princess. Design and intervention will be covered by Raina. Baseline information and intervention phase will be discussed by Camilla. IOA of our project will be covered by Raina. Treatment integrity will be discussed by Brittany. Individual graphs and discussion will be presented by Brittany and Emily. Emily will finish with the conclusion, and last but not least, the limitations will be discussed by Raina. Next is Emily with our abstract.
In this study, we use a contingency management intervention to see if it was effective in increasing the number of steps taken daily in an adult between the ages of 23 and 27. After implementing the contingency management intervention, we implemented an intervention using no contingency management. Each day, we recorded our steps and graphed them using a changing criterion graph. So the goal of our study is to answer the question, can a contingency management intervention help increase the number of steps taken daily in adults? However, before we go further into this, we will discuss our literature review, which is up next.
So what do we mean when we are talking about increasing walking? Based on literature review, physical guidelines can be expressed in terms of frequency, duration, and intensity parameters. Research has suggested that a daily 10,000 steps is recommended for maintaining a desirable level of physical activity for health in adults. However, it has been examined whether it is achievable to meet 10,000 steps through daily routine activities, not including sports, for example, running errands or walking around your house. There are a variety of ways to change sedentary lifestyle to improve physical activity in a healthy adult. For example, engaging in sports and activities within the home or community are both considered to improve levels of physical activity. Shown in previous studies regarding physical activity and steps in particular, it has been suggested that pedometers help to increase both physical activity as well as overall health of adults between 18 through 65 years of age. And next, we will discuss the methods of our replicated study.
The participants in the study included 5 applied behavior analysis female students from Ball State University, ranging from the ages of 23 to 27 years old. The participants included Brittany, Camilla, Raina, Emily, and Princess. The materials in this study included a fitness tracker, activity tracker with heart rate monitor watch by Let's Calm, which all the participants purchased through Amazon. The participants also use an activity log within Google Docs to input the steps that were taken from 8 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. at the end of each day. The participants were required to download the Fit Pro application on their mobile or their tablet device to be able to sync the track of the steps taken. The behavioral definition of taking steps is any instance a person moves from one point to another by lifting one foot off the ground and placing down the other foot at any given pace. For example, fast or slow, walking or running. Some fitness trackers measure steps when the arm or hip is moved without the legs moving in a step motion. At 8 p.m. each day, throughout the baseline, Intervention 1 and Intervention 2 phases, each participant will sync their fitness tracker to the application. The participant will wait until the sync is complete to screenshot the home page, which will provide a visual of the steps that were taken for the day. Each participant will then take a screenshot of the home page from their mobile device and send the screenshot to the other participants within the allotted group text message. Each participant will go to the activity log within Google Docs and input their steps for their day under the designated column per participant and date. Next is Rena to discuss the design.
This is a single subject research design that utilizes a changing criterion design. The changing criterion design permitted a criterion goal to be set during each phase of the intervention. During intervention number 1, the contingency management phase was the independent variable in which reinforcement was provided if criterion goals were achieved. During intervention number 2, the contingency management was removed and reinforcement was not provided for reaching criterion goals. Once criterion goals were achieved, participants moved on to a new criterion goal. Up next is intervention information. As said previously, the changing criterion design was used throughout the study to set step goals for participants. Each participant had the same initial criterion goal of 7,000 steps that needed to be met before progressing to a new criterion goal. There were 2 interventions in this study. Each intervention consisted of 2 5-day block periods. In order to move from one goal to the next, participants needed to meet or exceed the current criterion goal they were on. In order to reach stability, participants had to meet the criterion for 3 days out of the 5-day block. Up next is baseline phase discussed by Camilla.
Prior to intervention, we had to collect baseline data for 5 days to determine, on average, the frequency of steps collected at the end of each day. For the participant to partake in the study, the frequency of steps has to be below 10,000 steps throughout the baseline phase. As Rena mentioned above, both interventions included a changing criterion design to set step goals. Next, I will discuss the interventions. There were 2 experiments in the intervention phase. The first experiment consisted of money-based contingency management, as we will refer to as CM, to increase activity levels by increasing step count through a fitness tracking device. The CM intervention lasted for 10 days that consisted of 5-day block periods. Each participant wore the tracking device each day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Then the participants were required to send a screenshot of their steps through text message and update the activity log on Google Docs. If a participant met a step goal for 3 days or more days of 7,000 steps to 8,000 steps, the participant received compensation in the form of money. We were provided $2 per day each day when the goal was met. If the participant advanced to a new goal of 9,000 to 10,000, $3 was provided to the participant. If they met 10,000 steps per day of more than 3 days during 2 consecutive 5-day blocks, the intervention would be terminated. The second intervention followed the same procedure as the first intervention, with the exception of no monetary consequence for meeting step goals. When the participants met 7,000 to 8,000 step goals, they were not provided any type of money. Next, Rena will discuss intra-observer agreement during our intervention phases.
Inter-observer agreement was obtained in the replication study by sending a screenshot exemplifying the steps each participant took between the set time interval of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. by using the VeryFitPro application. The participants were required to send a screenshot to the designated group text message, where each participant was included in this message. The data of steps taken was to be sent to the group each day before 11:59 p.m. Up next is treatment fidelity discussed by Brittany.
Treatment fidelity was monitored for consistency and accuracy across all participants by allotting the same time frame, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Each participant was responsible for putting on their fitness tracker at 8 a.m. and taking the tracker off at 8 p.m. All participants ordered the same model of the Let's Calm fitness watch from Amazon. At 8 p.m., each participant took a screenshot of the total steps for the 12-hour duration and recorded the steps on the Google Docs activity log. Up next is individual graph and discussion. Next, we will discuss each participant's graph and discussion. For participant Brittany, myself, during baseline, the average steps is 5,451, and the range is 3,555 to 8,046 steps. During intervention 1, the contingency management criterion 1 goal of 7,000 steps, the average steps is 7,213, and the range is 4,373 to 9,908 steps. Based on the procedure protocol, participant met criterion for intervention 1 by taking more than 7,000 steps for 3 days during the 5-day block. Participant was moved up to a new criterion of more than 9,000 steps during the second portion of the 5-day block during intervention 1. Thus, during intervention 1, criterion 2, average steps is 7,719, and the range of steps is 6,045 to 9,644. During intervention 2, no contingency management, average steps is 6,121, and the range is 3,545 to 8,764 steps. The graph exemplifies that the contingency management was effective for this participant in increasing her steps for each goal. The next participant that we will discuss is Camilla. During baseline, the average steps taken by Camilla was 6,125, and the range was 3,438 to 8,607. During intervention 1 with contingency management, again, the goal was 7,000 steps per day. Average number of steps for Camilla were 6,883, and the range was 3,460 to 10,000 steps. So Camilla did not meet the criterion of 7,000 steps during a 5-day block to move up to the new goal. During the intervention with no contingency management, the average number of steps for Camilla was 8,212, ranging from 7,258 to 9,579. The graph exemplifies that the contingency management phase was not effective for increasing her steps, whereas no contingency management was effective in increasing Camilla's steps. Next, we are going to discuss the participant Princess. The next participant's graph is for baseline was an average of 4,184, ranging from 3,465 steps to 5,112 steps. During the intervention with contingency management, her average number of steps was 5,326. During this phase, she did not meet the 7,000 steps for 3 days to move up to the next criterion. During the second intervention with no contingency management, her average number of steps were 9,412, ranging from 3,435 to 19,462 steps. This graph exemplifies that for Princess, the contingency management was not effective. However, the no contingency management phase increased her steps. Next, Emily will discuss Raina's progress.
This graph shows Rena's daily steps. During the baseline phase of the intervention, Rena's steps ranged from 2,370 to 4,904, with the average steps for baseline being 3,437. For intervention number 1, which was the contingency management phase, Her steps ranged from 1,302 to 8,875, with the average number of steps being 3,699. The criterion goal was set at 7,000 steps, and in order to meet this goal and move on to a new criterion, 7,000 steps needed to be met for 3 days out of the 5-day block period. Since Rena was unable to reach this goal, she did not move on to a new criterion goal. For intervention number 2, which was the no contingency management phase, her steps ranged from 2,313 to 4,479, with an average number of steps being 3,305. The initial criterion goal for intervention 2 was also 7,000 steps, and she did not meet this goal and was unable to move to a new criterion. It is clear from looking at the graph that the contingency management did not have a large impact on her step performance. Up next, we will look at Emily's graph. This graph shows Emily's daily steps. As you can see, during the baseline phase, her steps ranged between 4,157 to 6,023 steps. The average was 4,889. During the contingency management intervention, she had a goal of taking at least 7,000 steps for 3 days out of the first 5-day block period. If she made this goal, she would be able to move on to a new goal of 9,000 steps for the second 5-day block period. Since she did not reach the first goal of 7,000 steps, or at least 3 days out of the 5, she was unable to move on to the next goal and stayed at the goal of 7,000 steps for the second 5-day block period. For this contingency management intervention, daily steps ranged between 1,483 and 9,774, and the average was 5,295. The next intervention phase consisted of no contingency management. Again, the goal was set for 7,000 steps, but since she did not meet it for 3 days out of the first 5-day block, the goal will continue to be 7,000 for the following 5-day block period. For this last phase, her daily steps so far have ranged from 1,023 to 3,155, and the current average is 2,406. Next up, we will discuss our results. So what do these graphs show us? Well, after collecting data during each intervention and reviewing each of our graphs, we can see that during the contingency management intervention, out of the 4 participants, only Brittany was able to meet the goal of reaching 7,000 steps for 3 days out of the first 5-day block period. The remaining 4 participants were unable to achieve this goal of reaching 7,000 steps. So for the second 5-day block period, our goal continued to be 7,000 steps. With only 1 out of the 5, or 20% of participants, able to achieve the second goal, it seems that the contingency management intervention was ineffective for 4 out of 5 of the participants, or 80%. Looking at the intervention where no contingency management was used, Rena and Emily did not meet the 7,000 step goal any of the days during the intervention. It appears that the no contingency management intervention was ineffective for both Rena and Emily, as their daily steps did not increase. Brittany, however, initially was able to meet her goal of 7,000 steps, but then her daily steps decreased after the first day. This shows that the no contingency management intervention was possibly ineffective for her as well. Looking at Princess's graph, it shows an increase in the number of steps taken daily and an upward trend. Princess was able to meet her goal of 7,000 steps on the third day of the no contingency management intervention. If Princess continues to meet her goal of 7,000 steps for the next day, she will move to the goal of 9,000 steps, showing that the no contingency intervention could be effective for her. When viewing Camilla's results, it seems that because she was able to meet her goal of 7,000 steps each day during the no contingency management intervention, that it is more effective for her than the contingency intervention method. Compared to the original study, our results are not the same. In the original study, it shows that a contingency management was more effective than the intervention with no contingency management. In our replicated study, it shows that contingency management was less effective than the no contingency management. It is also important to remember that as this study was completed during a short time frame, we cannot completely confirm that one intervention was more effective than the other, as more data is needed to show a more definite functional relation. These percentages that have been shown are based off of the current data that we have, and if we had had more time, we may have seen different results. Some questions to think about are, did we set our initial step goals too high? Was the reinforcement reinforcing to the participants? If either of these had changed, would we see different results? What would our data look like if we were able to replicate our study for longer than the 2 5-day blocks for each intervention? These are all great questions to have when comparing our replicated study to the original study. Lastly, we will discuss further limitations of our study.
There are a couple of limitations to our replicating part of the study. One, there was a limited accuracy of the device. There were a few times that while walking, the tracker did not increase the steps. This clearly makes the device a bit inaccurate. Also, when an individual was active but not taking steps, the tracker would count those instances as steps taken. For example, moving arms up and down repeatedly while sitting down would show as steps taken. This makes the data unreliable and not as accurate as we had hoped. In addition, the fitness tracker would record steps while the participant was walking. But on occasion, if the participant was watching the steps increase and stopped walking, the steps that were just taken were subtracted. For example, if a participant walked 10 steps and it was at 1,000 steps, the watch indicated that the participant had additional 10 steps on to the 1,000. Once the participant stopped walking, the tracker went back to 1,000 steps, so it decreased the 10 steps that the participant walked. Next, Rena will discuss the remaining of the limitations to our replication of the original study.
There are some additional limitations to our replication study. The time interval that was chosen to track steps for the study, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., could be considered a limitation for individuals that do a lot of their exercising before or after the set time. It is also a limitation for individuals that have a longer commute during those times. For example, if an individual has a commute that consists of 2 hours during the specific time interval of 8 a.m. through 8 p.m., they potentially will not be able to collect as much step data than an individual that has a 2-hour commute outside of the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. timeframe. In addition, we realized after implementing the first intervention that the goals might have been set too high. When initially deciding on step goals, we chose the criterion to be set at 2,000 to 3,000 steps. But before starting the study and taking data, we decided that we wanted to change the initial criterion goal to be set at 7,000 to 8,000 steps instead. Since the goal was too high, not all members were able to meet the first criterion goal that was set, and in addition, were not able to obtain stable data in order to move on to the next criterion, and were limited to one criterion during the study. Another limitation could be that the reinforcers were not reinforcing for all members. Without quality reinforcers, the contingency management phase may have not been as effective for some members as the reinforcer was not truly reinforcing. Up next, we'll be wrapping up the presentation. To conclude, the participants are still in the process of taking data on their steps. Intervention 2, which is the no contingency management phase, will consist of 10 days when fully completed on June 28th. Updates will be made to intervention number 2 in the project report section of this project. This concludes our presentation, and we hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.